My name is Vernon Miller, and I've lived in Carroll County and Westminster, in fact, all my life. I'm 80 years old, and I'll be 80 years old in 2 months.
Wow. Well, if you could start about telling us a little bit about what it was like growing up in Carroll County almost 80 years ago.
All right. Yes, I've lived in Westminster all my life. My father lived in Westminster all his life. My father was Russell B. Miller, Sr., and he had a business in Westminster. But I think you asked me to start a little earlier than what he had his business. So I lived in Westminster, born in 149 West Main Street in Westminster. Right across from my home on West Main Street was a familiar name to a lot of people, Dr. Fouts. He was our family doctor. Right next to my home was a business called Carroll Distributors. And when to go back a little further, I went to West End School, which was about a block and a half away from me. In the triangle between Pennsylvania Avenue and West Main Street was a school called West End. And they had 4 grades there. I went to all 4 grades there. And they had, we had a lot of fun there. We used to have maypole dances and, at West End School. I lived close enough to that, like I said, I was able to come home for lunch. My mom would be living there, and she didn't work anywhere else. She did the bookwork for my dad's business in the home. And I would come home for lunch all through 4 grades there. And there was a couple stores between there and the school. There's Himmler's store up on the corner of Main and the alley that went back to the school. There was another little store called Himmler's. I lost the name of that one. But they had, what I remember about it was I'd go home for lunch, have something to eat. My mom would give me a nickel, and I'd get a candy bar on the way back to school. But right next door to us lived where there was a business called Carroll Distributors. And when I was just a kid, about 10, 11, 12 years old, at this place, they sold 7-Up. And they also bottled knee-high sodas there, which is a company that's long gone, I think, now. Also, they sold beer. They sold Gunther beer, Old German beer, Rolling Rock beer. And when I was growing up, I made a few pennies by helping them out after school. The trucks would come in empty, and I'd help unload them, stack the cases and so forth.
When you were 10 or 11?
And I was 10 or 11, probably when I began to actually do it, gain a few muscles by lifting these things around. They also had keg beer. They had a big cooler in the back that they handled quarter and half kegs of beer back there. So tussle them around, and you got a little muscle from time to time. But they were the fellows that ran that. There was Bill Schalk, Dutch Bankert, and Russell Weinholt. And as I grew a little older, on Saturdays I would go with Russ Weinholt to deliver over Westminster these different things. And like I say, my home was right next door to it. He would, if we would go out of town early in the morning, I would sleep in my front room of the house, and it was so close to next door that I would sleep until he would reach over the hedge and tap on the window where I was for me to come out. It's time to go.
Wow.
But he would, and another thing I wanted to mention about that was, as I got a little older, the knee-high was bottled, like I say, right there. They had what they call a syrup room on sort of a second story in there, a 2-story building, warehouse. And they would make the knee-high right there, the syrup, and they bottled all kinds. They had root beer, lemon, lime, orange, grape. Root beer, I believe, orange, cherry. They made all those different flavors right there, and they would take them out then to the church picnics. They had what they called strawberry festivals and church picnics, and these fellows would take this after they bottled it, and they would take it out there on the particular days that they asked for it. Usually it's on a weekend, Sundays. And like the Leicester Church was one of them, favorite place to go. And the Westminster Band would probably be there. And my dad was in the Westminster Band. He was a member, played the cornet. And here again, it was about 10, 12 years old. I remember I used to like to carry his cornet to the different things. And I remember I was so small that I had trouble holding it up off the ground to carry it for him. But it was my job.
Now, what was family life like in your family?
Our
Like when you
family-
wake up, what kind of chores you had? And
All right. At this time, we had what we could call a coal house out back. We heated by coal. We had a large stove in the kitchen, cast iron stove, and we used wood or coal, most of the time coal. And one of my jobs was to carry coal from the coal house. And in our backyard, we had a walnut tree, cherry tree, and an English walnut tree, and we had a grape arbor. No garden. A
No
grape
garden.
arbor had grapes.
oh, okay,
We never had a garden really. We had a few tomatoes, that was all. But we used to play in all these trees. We had a swing in every one of them, I think, at some time or other. But and my dad then, talking about early, my dad started his business in 1927 called Miller's Electrical Service. He wound up with a business on Main Street that maybe somebody still remembers. He was at the forks of the road at Main and Pennsylvania Avenue, 99 West Main Street, where the Rexall Drug Store was not too long ago.
yes.
We ran that business. I wound up after he passed away. He started business in 1927. He died in 1973, I believe it was. And my wife and son and I took the business after that. We ran it until 1991.
Wow.
And we had a pretty good business going there. We did electrical work all over the county. We sold major appliances there. We sold Hot Point and Maytag, and towards the last we had Hot Point and GE major appliances. And we sold small appliances too, like Sunbeam, Universal, things like that too. Sold light fixtures, electrical supplies. We had a pretty good little business going there.
That's great.
But we did that, like I say, I did electrical work. My trade was electrician. My dad taught me, and I did that until he died, and then I took over the store, and my wife and I.
So at that time, when you passed the business down to your children, really your parents or people who were older trained you in that job? You didn't
Right.
have to go to the training school?
No, I went to Westminster High School, and I took Voc Tech at Westminster High School, simply because I thought that was going to be helpful for the trade, electrical trade.
Yes.
And as it turns out, it was. It helped me in many ways. I want to mention the fact that my mother's name was Hilda Miller. My wife's name, I'm going to say right now,
Go right
is
ahead.
Janet Miller. She was Bear, and B-A-I-R. She came from down Woodbine area. And I had my youngest daughter is Susan Turfel. Her name is now, and my oldest daughter was Connie Green. My son's name is Sherman Lee Miller. He was helped quite a bit with the business. He retired as a major from the National Guard. He was in the He spent 20 years in the National Guard and the Reserves. He was in both from time to time.
Great.
Connie got married. Her name was Connie Green. She and her husband separated. She had a boy that was 3 years old. She had a brain hemorrhage and died at 22. And we raised her son, my wife and I, till he was 21.
Oh, good.
It was Jonathan Green.
Jonathan. Okay.
As far as What else along the
Do
line?
you
that
have
were
any
looking for?
brothers or sisters?
Yes, I have a brother and a sister.
Uh-huh.
Older brother, Russell Miller Jr., and my sister's name is Anna Heist.
Okay.
Anna, A-N-N-A. She lives in Gettysburg.
Okay.
Don't see her very often.
Yeah.
I'm not very good on computer, but that's one way we do correspond back and forth on the computer. I've learned enough to do that.
Yeah, good, good. Well, what are some of your favorite memories growing up around Westminster, Carroll County, or some of the favorite things your family loved to do?
I spent, I did an awful lot of work right in Westminster because of my job as an electrician. I lived there all my life except for 2 years. I was drafted into the service. I could mention the fact that I got married in 1951, in January 1951. I was drafted into the Army in July 1951, so we were married 6 months. We weren't too happy about that. I went to Fort Belvoir, Virginia. I was trained as a combat engineer. I was shipped over to Japan. In Japan, they sent me to school again for chemical, biological, radiological warfare training because they thought the Chinese were doing something there in Korea. After that, I got on a ship from Japan to Busan, Korea. Got on a train all the way up through Korea, wound up in North Korea because at the time the line was about 12, 15 miles above the 38th parallel. And I spent my time in B Company, second Division, Combat Engineers, B Company, 3rd Platoon. I went in there as a private first class, came out as a sergeant first class, I was platoon sergeant.
How long was that time?
I was there in Korea 14 months.
Okay.
So I made my rank in 14 months.
Wow.
It was a bad place. In other words, I lost good friends, buddies. Had a black sergeant that was my squad sergeant when I first went in, Sergeant Albert Kozart. He was killed. I was about 50 feet away from him when he was hit with a mortar. Died. We carried him away, and he seemed pretty good, but he was hit in the throat, and I found out later that he had passed away. And Lieutenant Green was my platoon leader. He got hit with mortar. Mortar was what did so much damage at that time because it was the so-called peace talks were going on then. But there was no, the only thing about it was they weren't trying to advance too far, but there was mortar, it was a mortar and artillery war going on, back and forth, trying to take hills just to prove that they could do it.
Right.
I was on, you might have heard of Pork Chop Hill. I
Yes.
spent time on Pork Chop Hill, Arrowhead Ridge, Old Baldy, T-Bone. I was on all those. We worked. Had some there. I don't know if you call it escape, but experiences on Arrowhead Ridge. That's where my lieutenant and Sergeant Kozart got hit. The French, it was a United Nations thing, and this particular hill, Arrowhead Ridge, was being controlled and occupied by the French at this particular time. And I was part of the B Company was a part of the 23rd Infantry Regiment, the 2nd Division, and so was the French N Company. They were on this hill, and we were assigned to help them improve the conditions there, like dig trenches, lay minefields, lay barbed wire, build bunkers for the aid station and so forth is what we did. These battles, the Chinese would try to take these hills always at night because we controlled the skies pretty well with planes.
Right.
And the Chinese would always attack at night. And I was on that hill, Arrowhead Ridge, when the Chinese overran that hill. But the French beat them off, and they left, and afterwards there were hundreds of dead in front of that hill. We went back there to repair things and so forth. It was, that's something you like to forget, but you can't.
Right.
But I guess that's enough about Korea.
No, that was good information. People need to know about that.
I did tell you, I think I was there 14 months. I came back on a ship called Sergeant Sylvester Attilac, and I got back in the end of May 1953. So I was there 52 and 53 is when I was actually there. But I met a lot of really great fellows in there, and a lot of good men died there.
Yes, yeah. Now tell us about your experience with the Lions and how did you get
Okay,
involved with the
Club,
Lions Club?
I was, I guess, like I say, I was familiar with the Lions because my uncle was a Lions member, and he and I worked together. That was my dad's brother.
What was
Glenn.
his name?
His name was Glenn Miller. Would you believe it?
Like
and
the
he played in
band.
the Westminster Band, and he played trombone. So, my dad played a cornet. Later on, he had trouble with his teeth. My dad later on played the bass horn. But Waller Haynes is the one who had the quality cleaners here in Westminster. He's the one that asked me to join the club. He had been in the club good while. And of course, I've been in there a good while now. It's been 33 years this February that I've been in. But Waller invited me to come. He took me to a couple meetings, and here again, I already knew a good many people in the club because living in Westminster like I did, and because I used to go to some of the things that my uncle would take me to. They would have the what they used to call the corn roast, and some of the. I remember we used to have some of their meetings they had at the riding club.
Yes.
And they would, I remember a real interesting program way back then about the first spaceship being sent to up to for the moon and so forth.
Yes,
Some of that stuff was very early, and some of the engineers from Martin's were there to talk, and some of their things that they had speakers for the Lions Club were very interesting. I like to go to them back then. And so, like I say, it was easy for me to join the Westminster Lions Club, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Westminster Lions Club is a place that you probably think of as being kind of dry, maybe, but we can have a lot of fun at the Lions Club, and that's what makes it interesting a lot of times. That people would, if only knew, they would maybe join more if they knew that how much fun we have sometimes.
Right.
We cut up a good bit, and there's always a jokester somewhere in there that likes to have a little fun at the meetings. When I first joined, there was about close to 100 members. And then when I was president in 62, 63, it was down to 60. And now I think we have something like 45. It's, the club has gotten older, and it's gotten harder to recruit people like other clubs.
Right.
Everybody, men and women both work, just don't have the time. And the economy right now doesn't help any. But we have a real nice group right now in the Westminster Lions Club. If anybody listening to this might be interested in joining, we'd certainly appreciate it.
What kind of work do you do in the community? Because I know
right now I don't work. Of course, I'm retired. But
I mean the Lions Club.
Lions Club. Oh, okay. Lions Club. We had all kinds of projects to raise some money, and every bit of money we make goes right back out to the community. That's part of one of the rules of the Lions Club. We have what they call a 50-50 drawing at the meeting. Now that little bit of money we get, we can use for a party at Christmas or something like that. Otherwise, everything we earn, like for selling malt sales, we have malt sales about twice a year. Us old guys get a little hard, a little old to be handling malt, but we still do it. And we have a drawing here in October now. I think it's the 15th of October. We're going to have a drawing for a good bit of money, 5 different drawings. It'll be held out at the Ag Center. We sell tickets, $20 a piece. And some of these fellows probably have the tickets right with them if you're interested.
Okay.
But we get into a good many things, like eyeglasses is one of our most important things. In fact, the whole organization of the Lions Club is very interested in helping with eyesight. The local children a lot of times can't afford glasses.
Right.
And so if they come to us, we usually screen them pretty good. And there's times when we even do a little early screening. We have a device that has been improved quite a bit that you can actually see if there might be a problem, and then we tell them to go to see an eye doctor. And then if they have a problem with the cost of the glasses, we'll help them get them.
Okay.
And like all the clubs do that. Like if your child's in Tonytown, they go see the Tonytown Club. I'm sure they've helped them in Westminster and so forth. because all the clubs are very interested in eyesight. Also, we have about 3 different containers out around the Westminster area to collect used eyeglasses. And it's surprising how many we get and how many we could get, and they help mostly other countries that have places, poor countries that can't afford glasses, and it's surprising how well it will improve somebody's life by being able to see a little better.
Yes.
I understand there's a place where they have a parasite get in the eyes of people and that they can't see, and just by having a little bit of material drops in the eyes, which costs very little, it gets rid of the parasites, and now they can see. Otherwise, they can't. Just little things like that that we try to help over the world and with the glasses here in the United States.
Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to share about the Lions Club or about growing up in Carroll County?
Growing up in Carroll County, I'd probably like to talk a little bit more about being an electrician.
Okay.
Just about all the businesses downtown Westminster, I worked in at some time or other, because until my father passed away, that's what I did. In fact, when I was in Fort Belvoir in the service, I passed the test as an electrician. They sent me to electrician school, and I left Fort Belvoir with electrician's MOS in the service. But I never got to even screw in a light bulb anytime in the service. You know, the service don't always give you what you trained for.
Right.
But there was some very interesting things. I worked for, like I say, Thomas Benton Hunter, W.H. Davis's, Mather's store, Farmer's Building, almost every store downtown you can think of it. I probably worked in it sometime or other. Interesting little thing it might be to somebody who listened to this would be the fact that the fire department has a town clock up there on the old Farmer's Building.
Yes.
4-sided clock, and my dad had put lights out to light it at night. People couldn't see the time at night. And he had put that up there. Well, the ordinary bulbs, I think there was something like a 150-watt bulb in each one, and they would burn out. When the firemen had 2 bulbs burn out, they would call us to come replace the bulbs. Well, you'd have to go up to the bell tower, and you'd go out on this ledge on 3 sides, about 18 inches wide, and stand there, reach out, and take the glass, because the light was shining up, reach out. Well, in the front of the ledge was only about 10 inches wide, because on the street, in order to see the clock, they had made it narrow, you'd be able to see it.
Right.
Well, my job was to go out there and change those bulbs. I'd have to reach out there and take the ring off of that held the glass into the reflector, and then hand that back to my helper here, and take the bulb out and hand that back to him. He'd wash the glass, put a new bulb in. Well, one time I forgot that big old bell in there strikes on the time and the half hour, and so just as I'm reaching out, it goes a big old bong that that sort of made you take a second. But we did that many times, and after that I remembered to look what time it was before I went out there.
Yes.
But things like that, we had a lot of interesting things took place over the years doing electrical work. And that was one thing about electrical work to me, you never got 2 jobs alike. They were always different. And it was very satisfactory work from the standpoint that after you did something, you could look back and see what you did.
Yeah.
So many jobs, I think, paperwork and so forth, to me, you can't tell what you did.
Right.
Worked all day. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was something kept changing. The early, when my dad first started, they had what they called knob and tube. They ran 2 wires through the house, a log house, because the farmhouses didn't have electric then. It was just coming along. And now the electrical business is very, very complicated. And one thing about it, it has to be right or it won't work.
Right.
And I might say it was kind of a shocking business.
Now, you've seen a lot of changes in just in Westminster and Carroll County. What are some of the things that really stand out to you as the changes that have taken place?
But one of the things that I think has been talked about a good bit is what downtown Westminster at one time was sort of a Saturday night town. People would come into town from out of town, and they would come in early, park along both sides of the street, and just sit in the car and watch people go up and down the street. All the stores are right there on, you might say, one side of the street.
Right.
Very little on the other side. The church was on that side. There was a mill on that side. But all the stores, 5 and 10, Mathers, Wampers, Pennies, all of them were on the theaters. And so they would walk up and down the street, and it was just meet your neighbor sort of type of thing. They'd talk in and out of the car windows, spend the evening there. And maybe some of the men might go down there to the railroad, to the pit, and have a drink or two and meet their wives back at the car. But it was a friendly town, and still is. But I guess those are some of the things I can remember. There was a store, a Goodyear store. There was a Hollinger store that I used to do business with when I was a kid. I remember my mom would take me to get groceries at the A&P store that was downtown. I wanted when I was real little, I wanted a wagon so bad, and a wagon was $10, and I had to save for that wagon. But she said it was all right, and she was going to help me because she would take me to the grocery stores with that wagon, and we'd bring home groceries in that wagon.
Do you have any other favorite memories?
Well, getting married and married a very wonderful lady, have some really fine kids.
How long have you been married?
I've been married now, it would be 58 years.
Wow.
This January would be 59 years.
Wow. And I guess the staying together, being married was a lot different than it is today.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty amazing to me how it seems like 7 years about all marriage stays anymore. But I don't know. I look back at we go to our high school reunions. They've been having them now. We used to have them every 10 years. Now I've been having them every 5 years. Now I've been having them. The last couple have been every year, just simply because they're disappearing fast.
Right.
But we look back and almost all of them in our high school reunions are still together, for years. That doesn't happen a whole lot anymore.
What do you think the difference is?
I don't know what takes place here anymore. That they get restless or what it is. I don't know. I can't answer that. But it seems to be something that is happening.
Yeah. Well, it must have been something back then that kept people together more.
When you got married, you got married for life, and they took it seriously. And I don't know. That's exactly what it is. The times, maybe. Maybe because the wife worked at home, stayed at home. I can't say she was a housewife because she worked at home just as hard as somebody working in a factory or in a. My wife worked some. When we first got married, she worked in the office at the Westminster Shoe Factory. That was another place we did a lot of work for. And she worked there until we had their children. She went back to work for a short time at the same place for a little while. But I think most of the ladies wound up being housewives, the men. But it's gotten so that doesn't work anymore. Maybe because people are not satisfied with the amount that the one man brings in, and so the wife goes to work. Maybe because we have to. I'm not sure about how that works either.
Okay. Anything else about the Lions Club that you wanted to share?
The Lions Club is, like I say, it's probably thought of maybe as being pretty stuffy, but the Lions Club can do a lot for the community, and we do a lot for the community. We had two things down here at the Fall Fest. We were responsible for the stuff the the clothes there and made the scarecrows and so
yes.
forth. That was one of our projects. And we also had a booth there where they sold egg sandwiches and things like that to help make money for the club and also for the city.
Did you have scholarships too?
Yes,
So I remember.
we have at least 2 scholarships and one for high school, each high school, and one for VOTEC that
Very
we give
good.
money to. Yes, that's another one of the members is always assigned to that job to check out the. We ask for people to send in their applications and so forth, and we're surprised that we don't get any more than what we do from the schools. But yeah, that's one of the members each time. Another part of the Lions Club, I guess, that show that we're not all business. We have a little fun is they have what they call the tail twister and line tamer. There's each year one of the members is made line tamer and tail twister. Well, a tail twister, his job is to stir up a little fun in the club, and he'll maybe like this coming week now. I think everybody's supposed to wear a red shirt. If you don't, they get fined. And the line tamer, his job is to break up any fights that might take place. I don't remember if he's ever had to do anything, but that's his job. But that's some of the things else that the Lions Club does. We have a good president right now. I mentioned his name, Ron Brewer. There's going to be one of the members come out here, I think, and talk to you all. He's the president right now, and he's working real hard at doing a very good job. Paul. Just that quick, I lost the name of our past president. Garver. Paul Garver was the past president, another very good member and leader. And I enjoyed, always have enjoyed coming to the Lions Club. It's, you get interested in it and you want to come. It's,
I'm sure it's the relationships too between
camaraderie and
the
so
people. Yes.
Yeah. Talking about that, that's something else along in my Korean days. My Lieutenant Green was hit with a mortar round and was in the elbow and left, and the man that took over his job, Second Lieutenant Hal Brasowitz, lives in Cleveland, Ohio, and he and I have gotten over, it took about 50 years, but we got together on a computer. So we're emailing now fairly regularly back and forth with on the computer. And he remembers something that took place, and that'll remind me of something. And we've had this going now for about 5 years, I guess.
That's great.
And I've been to 3 second division reunions. First one was Philadelphia. Then we went to Nashville, Tennessee. And then we went to Charleston, South Carolina. So I've been to 3 of them. And I met fellows that you hadn't seen for 50 years and so forth. It gives you some good feeling to see them.
Yes, absolutely.
There's something about that. If you've ever been in combat with some soldiers, you develop something that nobody else can feel. That it's something special.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yes, indeed. My pleasure.
Yep. Appreciate that.
Thank you
Thank
very
you for
much.
coming.
Okay.
Okay.